Welcome, friends, to my space. I'm your host, Sherry Pluskota, and I'm happy you're joining me and listening live or at a future time. I appreciate you. Welcome to my co host, Donna, and to Tony Burns. How are you guys?
I'm good. Sherry, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just a little heads up for everybody. Um, Tony is on a short schedule tonight because Chris Moneymaker has the flu, and Tony is going to fill in for him at his club in Louisville. So I promised him I'd have him out of here in 30 minutes. So I'm glad you gave us some time, though. Appreciate the effort, Tony.
No, always appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you and talk all things poker.
I love it. Well, let me do a couple house cleaning things. First, many thanks to my sponsor, Elevator Results. If you need a tailor made workout plan to help you lose weight or gain weight, Elevator Results can design that plan. Follow them on Twitter and check out their site at elevatorresultspt.com. Also, a reminder you can find the recordings of my past spaces, including our daily WSOP coverage and all interviews at my YouTube channel at Sherry Pluskota 9212. Just wanted to send some prayers out to a Spaces regular and host Avi and his family, who is burying a brother today. So shout out to Avi. We're praying for you and your family, buddy. And if you need something, let us know, Avi. Um, I'm going to give you a proper introduction now, Tony. Tony got motivated to get involved with poker after watching Moneymaker win his bracelet live in Vegas. He returned to Florida and began the player grind, and he also dealt poker at a local bar league before buying a bar league franchise. He also dealt on Sun Cruz Casino before the no limit game became legal in Florida. My guest tonight has spent 8 years at the Hard Rock Hollywood as the top dog tournament director, and then he became the director of poker marketing. In 2023, he partnered up with Chris Moneymaker and created the Upstart Moneymaker Poker Tour, where he has served as the executive manager. My guest absolutely loves baseball, and you will never meet a bigger baseball fan, I promise you. Tony has total life earnings on the Hendon Mob over $108,000, and his best life cash was over $6,000 for his first place finish at the Hard Rock Hollywood $250 in Slater Scoops Quad Stack Tournament. I hope I got that right.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. So again, thank you for joining us, Tony. I appreciate you.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you having me on. And fun thing about that tournament, that was actually on my last birthday. So always fun to have your biggest score on your birthday.
You know, it's funny you said that, and that is awesome that it was on your birthday because Lucky Chewy was on with us not too long ago, and he won a big Poker Go tournament on his birthday last year. So um, I need that birthday run good, that's for sure. All right, let's start out with some fun stuff about you first. Tell us how you became a bat boy for the Chicago Cubs Double A team.
So as a kid, my dad and my grandpa, he had a kind of a ritual. I was born in Indiana, and he would take the family to Wrigley Field once a year as kind of a family, getaway. So I got into baseball super young, and my Cubs game was when I was 7. When my parents split up when I was younger, I moved to Florida with my dad, and I grew up in Central Florida. And I played baseball, went to baseball camps, and the Double A Cubs Southern League played in Orlando, which was about a 45-minute drive from our home, and they'd taken the Little League team over to a game. And during a rain delay, we were standing outside the clubhouse area where the players had their weight room, and they opened up the door to kind of look outside and see what the weather looked like. And just me and my two other buddies, we were wanting an autograph, and they gave us an autograph. They invited us into the weight room area, and we were just talking with them. And they said, "All right, which one of you is the oldest here?" And it happened to be me. And they said, "All right, well, we need a ball boy for the night." And I was 11 years old at the time. So I served as the ball boy down the line that night, and
That's awesome.
yeah, so I just got picked out. I mean, just right place at the right time, got picked out of the stands,
Right.
and the bat boy that was there normally couldn't be there the next night, so he asked me if I could fill in, and I asked my dad, and he said, "Yeah, I'll bring you back tomorrow." And next thing you know, they were inviting me. They just said, "Come back for the rest of the season," and the rest
That's
was kind of history.
amazing. Well, not only were you the ball boy, but then you were at some point the stadium DJ, and then you moved into clubhouse manager, and actually were hanging around, the ballparks for about 11 years. What other teams did you work for?
So I worked for the Cubs organization from 1993 to 1996. And then I wrote a letter to the Florida Marlins in the off season of '96, and I got hired as a spring training bat boy. And for the season of 1997, which they actually won the World Series that year, so that was pretty cool. My first year with
Nice.
yeah, they won the series, and worked for the Marlins from 1997 to 2002. And then the Marlins were sold to Jeffrey Loria, who owned the Expos at the time, and he sold to Major League Baseball. And there was this kind of this whole transformation that basically, if you worked for the Marlins, you went to the Expos, and if you worked for the Expos, you went to the Marlins.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so ended up going to work for the Montreal Expos for a couple years, 2003, 2004. Um, and I was working spring training, and then they became the Washington Nationals. I worked the spring training for the Nationals in '05, and that's when I kind of had a decision. I graduated college in December of '04, and I was just getting into poker, and I had this opportunity to kind of take my degree and start this bar poker league, or move to Washington D.C. and be the visiting clubhouse laundry guy. And I took the path to be to get into poker.
Good for you. Like, who wants to wash dirty underwear and jock straps the rest of their lives?
Well, that's not the highlight of the job. I mean, there was other cool
Of
responsibilities,
course.
but yeah, I took the more aggressive, unknown with poker, and such a great game. Met so many people over the last 20 years, and definitely glad that I went down this route.
Absolutely. And surely I was jesting, just for the record,
Oh,
for
I
our
know, I
listeners.
know.
Todd Rizzo, go ahead, buddy. Todd, you know Tony. I know you've talked to him before.
Hey Tony, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Todd.
Thanks, Sherry. Hey,
You're welcome.
I, I'm sorry to interject and ask you this question right in the middle of the interview, but a family friend of uh, of ours coached. He might have been a bench coach, or assistant coach, but do you remember for the Iowa Cubs, Bill Early?
I know they were I believe they were the AAA team, but I don't remember the name. I might remember the face.
Okay, okay. I was just curious if you happen to know him. He was from Cincinnati, Ohio,
Okay.
not too far from Indiana. I'm sure where you grew up, but just curious. That's all. Sorry,
Yeah,
Sherry.
no, met a lot of great people through the years with the Cubs. A lot of different bench coaches, and guys that would come down from the big leagues, and they would come down, and you'd have guys that would be rehabbing, major league ball players that they would come down and make starts in Double A, and you would got to meet those guys. And I bat boyed for Michael Jordan when he had that little stint in '94. So that was kind of for me. I was also a basketball fan, and to meet Michael Jordan at that time was pretty cool. Even though you could tell that he was going through, I think, a lot at that time. After the passing of his father.
Right on.
Awesome.
Appreciate that question, Todd. Appreciate you, buddy. Um, when you and Chris started the Moneymaker tour, the first year you had 4 stops. Last year you had 12 stops. Going into this third year, is it getting easier for you?
In some aspects, yes. It's the schedule is kind of setting itself. I think no, I wouldn't call it difficult, but the challenging part of my job right now is trying to get the tour to expand into regions we're not. I've made a lot of relationships over the years, and there's so much poker going on right now, and it's very difficult to chisel yourself into the right spot. And I think that is the challenge right now. I think I've read a lot of articles, and I think Matt's commented on it as well. Matt Savage is there's so much poker. There's a lot of tours. A lot of places are trying to do it themselves as well. They're trying to create their own brands.
Right.
So I feel with Chris the legacy that he is trying to create. And when I met Chris in 2018, finally, we just really hit it off, and we kept in touch through the years, and really through COVID. When our conversations kind of started to get a little bit more serious about what he was looking to do for the future. I feel extremely privileged to have this opportunity to grow a legacy for a man that's done so much for our game, and his story will never be replicated.
Amen. Okay, the tour is going down to Palm Beach Kennel Club February 12th through the 25th. What kind of tournament should we be looking forward to on that schedule?
Well, West Palm was our inaugural stop in May of 23. A lot of great stories that came out of that, from meeting Gene Calden, who we end up making the oldest participant in WSOP main event history at the age of 101.
I was pushing for that.
Yep, that was an awesome experience, and I think Gene's actually getting ready to turn 102 at the end of the
God
month.
bless
So,
him.
yeah, he's still out there, grinding hard. But yeah, there's going to be some great tournaments. We got a $300 buy-in, $150,000 guaranteed kickoff event, $1,500 main with 300K guarantee, and total of 30 trophy events, over $500,000. Actually, it's over 700,000 in guarantees. But West Palm has been a great partner for us. When it comes to Florida, it's just such a great state to come to and play poker. The action's great. There's so much to do. You're close to Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and if you want to go visit the Mouse, you're a few hour drive away from doing that, and all the theme parks. So, like I said, Florida's been an amazing state to grow up in, and
Well,
to
and let's face it, Florida in the wintertime is not a bad proposition.
unless you're in the Panhandle getting 8 inches.
Well, I'm in Georgia, so I only got 2 inches though, but it's okay. It kills the bugs, as they say,
Yeah.
and melts within a couple of days because we are so warm here for sure. But going to Florida in the winter from a northern state is always a good proposition. Where do you guys know where you're going after Palm Beach yet?
Well, actually, today was a very busy day for me. I have, I think, 4 contracts that are all, the ink is getting ready to dry on them.
Right.
So, going to be announcing quite a few stops um, for the remainder of the year. I'll give a little bit of a tease. Hopefully, they won't be too upset at me. But our partners in Aruba look to have us back. Those dates have been announced.
Nice.
So looking to get back there. Very hopeful to continue our relationship with the MGM family and Hard Rock family. So yeah, I think you're going to see, and also Daytona, Delaware North has been a great partner for us as well. So I think you're going to see a lot of those return spots. Also been working on some other. Chris has challenged me to grow, like I said, grow some more stops,
Right.
hopefully in the Northeast, and want to get even further out west. So hopeful that some of those come to fruition as well, and there might be another international stop or two this year as well.
Awesome. Now you brought up Aruba, and I believe you won a ring down on Aruba. Tell us about it.
I did, and it just happened per chance. I had no plans on playing when I was down there, and one of the things that even I think Doug Polk got into recently was talking about playing in his own club. And one of the allures of coming to the Moneymaker Tour is getting to play with Chris and interact with Chris. So when it comes to situations like that, I don't think people, Chris has yet to win one of his own events. He's final tabled a couple mains, but um, I did not want to play in any events that I was either making a floor call on, or if I had access to the chips. I just think that people know who I am, and I think they know that I would never do anything like that to jeopardize my
Right.
integrity in the game. But there are people that don't know me, and if I were to win an event and people were to see me, come out of, let's say, a back room where the chips were being stored, or just being overly chummy with the head TD of the spot,
Sure. It's
it,
not a
it,
good look.
no, it's not a good look, but they invited me to play down there. I wasn't making any floor calls. I was just more down there for marketing and making sure everybody was having a good time. There was 30 people that came from ACR, so just making sure all the ACR satellite winners were getting there and getting situated and having a good time. And so they had a $400 daily ring event going on, and it was like, "Hey, Tony, why don't you get in?" And Took a little bit of, I expressed some of my, I won't call them concerns, but just my reservations about getting in, and they were basically like, stop being that way. Just get in there, and sure as anything, I knocked out the last 11 players of the tournament. We were 12-handed, and
I love it.
yeah, it was pretty crazy. I knocked out everybody on the final table.
All right. Do you remember what the last hand was?
I do.
Tell
It
us.
was ace three of clubs versus ace six, and ended up getting in. He out flopped me, and excuse me, I believe I had the ace six, he had the ace three, but I ended up turning him dead. I made the nut flush on the turn, and it was pretty crazy when we got down to heads up. He only had I had 80 big blinds, and he had two or three big blinds, and people were
Wow.
coming up to me and they were congratulating me on winning. And at the time, the Florida Panthers had just tried to blow the 3-0 lead on the Stanley Cup. I'm like, look, I've seen weirder stuff happen. Don't congratulate me yet. And he doubled three times after
Oh,
we got heads up. And people, it was so funny. You look at some of the people's faces; they were moving away from the rail, like I'm not going to be the jinx here. But
right.
we ended up getting it done, and I ended up giving my ring to my daughter before the event started. I was showing her the tournament room, and she saw the ring, and she goes, "Daddy, if you win the ring, will you give it to me?" So I gave my ring to my oldest daughter.
That is awesome, Tony. And speaking of your two beautiful daughters, I know you're very proud of them. And I can't believe how big they are. I've been watching them through the years, as they say. Um, Besides that amazing accomplishment of being the dad of two beautiful daughters, what is something you're proud of in your poker world as an accomplishment? It could be as your role as an employee, as the director with the Moneymaker Tour, or as a player.
I think the one thing that I look at is that I'm very thankful that my job is centered around a game, that there is no decision that I make on a daily basis that is life or death. And I think that, there's so many other professions out there that are probably less compensated for, that are, you can justify how much more important they are, shaping the minds of our youth,
Right.
saving people. I mean, I'm sure doctors and surgeons get paid more than I do, certain ones, but it's well deserved. But like I said, the fact that my job is centered around a game, I couldn't be more thankful. And over my career, I've come across a lot of great people, and met a lot of great people. I've been recognized personally. This is about the time the GPI awards come out, and during my run at Hard Rock, to be nominated, 5 consecutive years to be in the Final Four was an awesome accomplishment. Um, so that's another thing that I'm proud of. But also just I know where I started and where I came from, and how hard that I've worked, the hours that I put in, those 24-hour days where you didn't get any sleep, or
Right
very little
on.
sleep, to put on a poker tournament. So to come from bar poker all the way up the corporate ladder, and now to come full circle and work for the man that has a huge influence and reason why we're here today. I could die tomorrow a happy man with a lot of accomplishment in this poker world.
Good for you, Tony. That's awesome. For those that are just joining us, Tony has to step in tonight. Chris has the flu, so Tony has to step in and make a guest appearance as a bounty at a tournament at the club in Louisville. So we only have a few more minutes with him. So Don, I'm going to give you the floor. Do you have any questions for Tony?
Due to time constraints, I shall pass on this one. But hi, Tony.
Hi,
Hope
Donna.
you're well, and hope Chris gets better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Love you. Isaac, any questions or comments for Tony?
Yeah. Do you miss working for the MLB teams?
I do. There are times that I look back, and I still have some connections with the guys that are still working in Major League Baseball, and the game has changed in a lot of ways. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of fun. The '90s were a roller coaster for Major League Baseball. When I was 13 years old, they had the strike year, and replacement players, and baseball kind of lost its popularity. And then you had the Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa home run chase, and Barry Bonds, and that was just such an electric time. The people want to keep those guys out of the Hall of Fame for their, some said they used PEDs, and some of them, said they didn't. But I still think that era holds quite a bit of significance and importance when it comes to baseball. But yeah, I miss it. I still love going to games. I still collect baseball cards. Ken Griffey Jr. was my favorite player growing up, and I guess also I feel a little bit older because now the players that I met back then, they're either their kids are playing, like your Vladimir Guerrero Juniors and Craig Beto and Dante Bichette. You're seeing all these guys that their kids are in the game, and then also you're seeing the Frank Robinsons pass away, and last week, the former Marlins manager passed away, and another bench coach for the Cubs passed away, and so you're seeing kind of this transition. But I love baseball. I'll miss being on the field. There was no better view. I had an amazing childhood that so many kids, I'm sure, dreamed of, and I got to live it.
Awesome. Thank you
That's
for
super
that
dope.
question.
That's super dope. Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
And
All
and
right.
Sherry, I'm happy to stay a little bit longer. If there's more questions, I'll be happy to stay. And uh,
Perfect.
so
Just let me know when you need to hit the eject button. You just let me know, okay?
I will.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Um, you took the Moneymaker tour and did a um you did a joint venture with the MGM, and I'm going to tell you on behalf of players, I really appreciate your stance, because after the series started, they decided to change the guarantees, and you quit and said you weren't going to work and be associated with those changes. So, can you kind of give us a glimpse of what that looked like for you, and I'm happy to say MGM stepped up, and we have great friends in Sean McCormack. But can you tell us a little bit of how that developed and looked for you?
That's kind of in the past, Sherry, and I don't, I appreciate the players that you had reached out and thanked me for the stance that I took at the time, and um, you know, I think that when certain things happen, it's an opportunity for certain people to reflect on decisions, and it was good to see at the time that MGM decided to change their stance on that, and but a lot's changed since then. We're very, very happy to be a partner with them, and like you said, Sean has been a great friend in the industry over time, and I have nothing bad to say about the MGM organization. They've been nothing but kind to the Moneymaker Tour, and we're looking forward to, like I said, hopefully continuing and expanding our relationship in 25.
And I think, honestly, the mere fact that they stood up and looked at the situation and said, no, wait a minute. We want to stick to our guns and stick to what we offered. And, there's been other properties, and believe me, we've talked about them in spaces that didn't take that approach. And I think kudos to not only Sean, his staff, and everyone that was willing to listen and do what I would consider would be the right thing as a player, and stick to those guarantees. you know, we all need to buy Justin Hammer a t-shirt or two that says, guarantees what guarantees. But, you have to appreciate those operators that stick with those guarantees, even when they're sucking air because of it. Right. And kudos. We talked about it in spaces, and, we gave lots of kudos to Sean and the MGM company for taking care of those guarantees. That's for sure. Um, what is something that most people don't know about you, Tony?
Oh goodness, I can recite the Canadian national anthem. I guess that's my go-to. If you need somebody to sing along with the national anthem, I can do that. After spending all those years of Major League Baseball and working with the Montreal Expos for a couple of years, yeah, that's my I guess my hidden trick. No. Wow, what do people not know about me? Um, I've been pretty much an open book, and that's kind of been a blessing and a curse over my career. I think a lot of people feel like they've been able to follow along. We're so accessible now, and with social media, and I think some of the times that we put things out there, and maybe we take a little step too far. And I've kind of lived my life as an open book, and but also I look at it as people have felt connected to me in that way, and it's kind of made me more relatable. I think when people can relate to one another, we share empathy, and when we're going through tough times and whatnot. But um, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to sit and stew on that one. But
Okay.
like I said, I've pretty much shared my life story, and I don't have much to hide, Sherry.
And you know what? That's a good thing. You're living life right if you have nothing to hide, Tony. That's a good thing. What name something you would change in the world of poker if you could wave a magic wand? Name something you would change in the world of poker.
Ooh, I might catch heat for this. Might be an unpopular. I would probably make tournaments, and some of the guys catch on me. I would make tournaments, and I'm a baseball guy. A three strikes, you're out. I would put a cap on the amount of entries for a tournament, because one of the things you know that we've seen with tournaments, um, and it's tough to unwind what's already been done, um, is to see you're seeing bigger bankrolls have a better shot of winning
Right.
tournaments, and that's not what I think poker was intended to do. We all know that tournaments were to bring in cash games, and you're seeing the disparity and the uh, people either play cash or they play tournament, and that blend of people, it doesn't exist like it used to. And I guess I would love to see that come back more, to see more tournament players playing cash and vice versa, if I could wave a wand on something. And I don't know what the right fix is. I don't
Right.
know if capping the amount of entries on a tournament would do that. There's the argument that people give. Well, when I go to play, a table game, you don't tell me that I can buy in three times, or I just look at a poker tournament as
Would
a competition. And
right.
when it comes to poker tournaments, it's we want to be looked at as a sport, and I just don't believe that you can go to the plate and keep swinging until you make contact.
Well, and buy your way. I say they're buying their way to the final table. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. You had Cody down in at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi a week or 10 days, 2 weeks ago now. I don't even remember when the hell it was. And he rebought in like 35 times into a $400 tournament.
Yeah, I
And
heard that. Yeah.
how can an average Joe or Jane compete with that, right? And yeah, we want the prize pool to grow, for sure, but I'm not sure 35 is the number that I want to see happen as far as rebuys are concerned. Um, because it leaves a lot of people in the dust.
Yeah.
And he was just doing flips, like going all in on blind every hand. And, it was nuts. So I do think, like you, there should be a cap. What's that magical number? I don't know, 6 or 8. I
Yeah.
don't know. Um, but I do think 35, you know,
Yeah, it's a little out of line, and like you said, people want to see the prize pools. And the thing about it is, even if a certain organization or two would take a stance and start to do more single reentries or freeze outs or double reentries or whatever that number is,
right,
the problem is getting everybody on the same page. And there are so many different operators, and this is their choice, and I have full respect for them, that they have shareholders, to answer to. And if they need to put revenue on their bottom line, they're looking short term. I'm trying to get another good 20, 30 years out of this game. And I constantly say, when I see a player, I won't, I don't want to just see him in 6 months. I want to see him in 6 years.
right,
And I think that there's a compromise. And another thing for me would be a close second. I know Sean's commented on this quite a bit, is we're going to eventually get to a point where phones can't be at the table. And I think it'll help us be more social, in this social media world, that you see so many people just get buried in their phones or an iPad, and they're not talking to one another. They have earbuds in, and I understand that too. You want to get in the zone, and maybe you have a table that the person talking isn't talking about one of the topics we shouldn't be talking about at the table. Um, but I look back at poker when I first started playing and how much more we interacted with one another. And last night, I'm here in Louisville now at Chris's club, and one of the dealers came up to me and she said, "I just want to thank you, for how you were entertaining the people that were playing here last night. They had a really good time playing with you, and because you chatted it up with them, like they can go play poker anywhere, whether it be regulated or not, and have fun. But the fact that you weren't on your phone and you were talking to them meant a lot to them. So,
I
uh,
agree with that. You just don't know how much I agree with that statement that nothing would make me happier than to ban phones at the table. It slows down the game. People aren't paying attention. Then they're asking, what's the bet? And every time it's their turn, they're asking the same questions. What's the bet? It's
yeah,
like I'm not here to tell you what the bet is. Like, pay attention, get off your phone.
yeah,
I get it. And I also get the other side of that, coin that, some people need to be on their phone. If it's business, it's one thing, but most of the time it is not. And we all know that. So,
yeah. Yeah, I get
um,
it. We all have families. We have
yeah,
emergencies, and like I said, we've become overly accessible in this modern age, and I don't know. That's just one thing I would love to see, and I love the direction that Matt and Justin were going. I think they came up with it when they were at Commerce, was the social experiment, and I don't know the last time they've done one of them, but that basically you couldn't be on your phone, and if you wanted to be on the phone, you stepped outside the tournament area. And I just think it's something that, if more rooms enforced, I think we'd be in a better spot. That was one of the questions that somebody asked me, if I was to ever to have my own poker room, what I would do. They have non-smoking and smoking sections. I would probably have a no electronic section in my room, where people like, hey, do you just want to come and play poker? We don't have electronics in this area, and you'll see the guys that are coming for action. They're coming to play for more hands. Are probably the ones that aren't on their phone, and I think that will also help. Uh, Maybe force people's hands that, man, if I want to play against more action players, I need to be off my phone.
right, right. Donna, did you have some questions for Tony since he can stick around a little bit longer?
Yeah. How difficult is it to start a tour? Because I know people turn around and say, "Oh yeah, it's good this," but how difficult is it to actually do the groundwork beforehand? And how long has it taken you to get Chris's tour off the ground?
Well, we're still growing it, and like Sherry said, we're going into year 3. Um, Luckily, I've made a lot of connections in my almost 2 decades in the business, to where I've gone to some places and said, "Hey, this is what we're trying to create," and I feel it's very difficult to start a poker tour. You've seen a lot of them, a few of them come and go. I think a lot of them, like Run Good, they've been in for almost a decade now, and Tana put in a lot of hard work, to get his off the ground. The MSPTs of the world. I think you are starting to see some more pop up ones. I just think that the market is saturated when it comes to tours. So I think anybody trying to get in right now, I think it would be very difficult for them. I think that what we have is we have Chris and his name and what he means to poker. So it still wasn't the easiest, but when you go to somebody and say, "Hey, I've got the Moneymaker brand," and Chris is middle of the road, and that's one great thing about him, is that Chris has never been polarized one way or the other. To try to find somebody that has a bad thing to say about Chris, I dare you to try to find it. And in this world that we live in, the poker world, unfortunately, we come across the scandals and things like that, and we have good people, We have good, moral, hardworking people, and it's not easy. It's been a lot of miles on the truck, a lot of airplane miles, a lot of phone calls, emails, face to face. I've knocked on a lot of doors. I've been told to, scram politely by some. Some places aren't ready for it. Some places want to do it. But there's a lot of um, logistics that go into running an event. It's not just throwing poker tables down for some of these operators. There's a huge capital expense that goes into, you know, um, into setting up an event. And not only just setting up the event, is you have to get everybody to buy into what you're trying to accomplish. Um, you could have a certain department, maybe the finance team on a certain at a property may not think that investing into poker tables and poker chips and all the labor that goes into that's the way to go. Maybe they feel like that money's better allocated towards slots and tables. So it's always that fight, and poker knows where it stands in the hierarchy of gaming. But the GMs and the CEOs that recognize what poker does and what it brings, the value that it brings to the properties, I think those are the ones that you see consistently succeed.
Thank you for answering that question.
My pleasure.
Awesome question. Tell us the name of the club in Louisville.
So it's called Moneymaker Social. Chris did a soft opening in June, and he finally did a grand opening in November. Obviously anything with the Moneymaker brand on it, I'm a huge supporter of Chris. I've come just to, visit, take a look at the operation, and just give some advice. They do have a management team here in place, and I'll come here and I'll play, and come here a handful of times to interact and say hello and just get the feedback and try to support the management team here as best as I can. The tour and some of the other things that Chris has me working on takes up a big part of my time, including the launch of Moneymaker Brands and getting Chris's coffee line off the ground.
Um, how are we going to find his coffee line?
Moneymakercoffee.com. We did a soft launch of that as well, but Moneymaker Coffee is available for sale. We'll drop ship right to your doorstep.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I like to play a little game called Rapid Fire. I'm going to give you two choices. Please pick one, or you can pass.
Okay.
There's no shame in that game.
All right.
Gummy bears or Sour Patch Kids?
Gummy bears.
Vegas or Florida?
uh, Florida's got my heart.
Steak or burgers?
Ooh, like a good burger.
Cook or do the dishes?
Cook.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
I knew that before you answered that one.
Oh, that was a snap.
Yeah. Texting or phone call?
Phone call. Lose too much in texting.
I agree. Comedy or action movie?
I like a good laugh. Comedy.
Marlins or Rays?
Marlins.
I knew that ahead of time as well, but just got to poke the bear a little bit. Um, when you were bat boying for Michael Jordan, were you fanboying it more than you were bat boying it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was 12 years old. I think I was, to me, Michael was God. I mean, at that time, the NBA championships, didn't really understand the full dynamic, what was going on at his life at the time. Knew that his father had passed away, and his dad wanted him to see him play baseball. But yeah, I was. I mean, you look at the pictures. I've got some photos that were taken of me standing next to him, and uh, you would think that I was a stalker by the look of my 12-year-old eye.
I love that. But what great memories as a 12-year-old that you could go to school and say, I was the bat boy for Michael Jordan. I mean, come on, bragging rights.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I'll also remember in fifth grade, my dad ran a Ramada Inn in Titusville, Florida, which was kind of the heart of Kennedy Space Center and the space era. And some of the astronauts would stay at my dad's hotel. And he's like, "Son, I'm going to go take you over. I'm in fifth grade." And he goes, "I'm going to introduce you to John Glenn."
Oh,
And I got to meet John Glenn. I was like, "Dad, I'm going to be late to school." And he goes, "Son, don't worry. When I tell your teacher that you got to meet John Glenn, I think you'll get an excuse." So I remember getting to meet John Glenn when I was in fifth
that's
grade.
amazing. How fun. What do you think of Elon being able to bring one of the rockets back to the starting point, so to speak?
Oh, it's incredible. Like I said,
Crazy.
there's so many memories of growing up on the Space Coast, and good and bad. I'll never forget. I was selling ADT security systems in 2003 when the Columbia was supposed to come back to the launch area um, in Cape Canaveral, and just all the cars that were waiting for it to come back, and not hearing the sonic booms, and then finally getting to work and finding out what had happened. And it's the Space Coast and that whole era. It means so much to me, and just remembering all the launches, watching the launches from my window and rattling my windows as it broke the Earth's atmosphere. And it was such a great time. But to see Elon bring that back, kind of after the Obama administration kind of shut the space program down, it's great to see him taking that off again.
I'm going to tell you, the first time I saw the rocket, or I guess it's the rocket or the boosters, I don't even know what the hell it is, come back and it just like clicked back into place from the launching pad or whatever. I almost didn't believe it. I was like, okay, is this for real? Like, am I really watching? It was so surreal that the technology had advanced so much that they could bring it back and reuse it and save those millions of dollars. I mean, I was just floored. I just am so fascinated by the whole concept of being able to bring it back, honestly.
No, it's incredible, and to only think about what the future lies for the space program, and to think that one day we will probably move to Mars, and to see how ecstatic he was when President Trump mentioned the exploration to Mars. And I think he's a brilliant mind, and one that'll help continue to grow our civilization.
Absolutely. He is so brilliant. It's crazy. All right, let's go back to poker for a minute. Have you played the main event?
I have not. That is a bucket list for me. I have played a couple satellites to get into the main. Actually, the first ever poker tournament I played in was in 2004 on the Sun Cruise Casino. Um, I played in a $330 satellite, and the winner got a seat to the main, and I ended up getting third place for
Oh,
3,300.
oh,
And that was the closest I ever. And also, I on Poker Stars back in the day, I used to play. I ran a Step Six satellite heads up to go to the World Series, so I have been on the doorstep to go. Um, but that is definitely an event that I want to participate in my lifetime.
well, it'll come when it's meant to be. It will be, Tony, for sure. All right, I'm going to go around the horn again. Todd Rizzo, any more questions or comments? Oh, and before that, anybody that would like to come up and ask a question or make a comment, please request that microphone in the bottom left corner. Todd Rizzo, any more questions or comments for Tony?
Tony, I've been to both stadiums down there, the Marlins and the Rays. Not the early, not the one when you were growing up, but the newer one for the Marlins, and it's
It
beautiful. That
is.
place is awesome.
It is. It's a great ballpark. It's really a shame that they weren't able to get into a better location. I think the Marlins would be better served in the West Palm, the Palm Beach, Northern Broward area than kind of downtown Miami. It's unfortunate what's happened to that organization over the years. I mean, they've won two world titles in the last 30 years, and then this year they have not spent a dollar in free agency, and it's hard to keep a fan base when you're doing that. Um, but yeah, the Tropicana field it got decimated to the point where they're not going to be able to host any home games there this season. And Tropicana is a tough field to watch a baseball game at. But yeah, that new Marlins Park is beautiful. And yeah, if anybody ever gets a chance to go down there, it's not a bad seat in that house.
And And quick question for you.
Yeah.
Moneymaker Tour, is it in the cards for Cincinnati again?
I would say it looks extremely favorable. Until any contracts are finalized, I can't comment one way or the other, but we're very hopeful to be back there again this year. Chris Herbert and his team, they do an amazing, amazing job. Love the Hard Rock brand. Hard Rock will always have a special place in my heart, and we are hopeful to be back in 25.
Awesome. If you make the trip, then I'll be happy to see you again then.
Love to see you there, my friend.
Love it. Love it. I know some of you guys know this already, but Hard Rock will always hold a special spot for me. Played my very first poker tournament in a card room at the Hard Rock Tampa and actually won it. So, another local and I chopped. And so it'll always have a little soft spot for me there in Tampa. Love that poker room for sure. I have
Yeah,
had
it's a
lots
great.
of fun there. I've always stopped there when I'm traveling. It's just so convenient, right?
Yeah, it
When
is.
you're
It's right there
traveling.
off of I
Yeah.
4. It's a great spot.
Yeah, it's so convenient. So, all right, Isaac, any questions or comments? Oh, he popped out. He's got to start his own space. They have a big group going on Friday nights. Miss Dawn, any comments or questions for Tony?
Yeah, just thank you for popping in tonight. I know it's short. It's been a short interview, but it's been really nice getting to know you. Good luck to the Moneymaker Tour, and I'm sure it's going to progress and get bigger and bigger. So good luck to everybody who's involved in the tour, and good luck to everyone playing.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate the well wishes and the continued support, and hope to do one of these again with you all here in the future. Maybe we'll catch up before the summer, or maybe during the summer, and
We'll do it.
do a midway progression of how the year's going for us.
Absolutely, we'll do it, Tony, for sure. And here's Sean McCormack. How are you, Big Daddy?
Oh, Jesus. Come on. This is a recorded space and it's a professional one. Come on, Sherry. Get your shit together. Get your shit
Oh, you mean I
together.
can't use your professional name on here? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
They,
Jesus.
they let
Good
anybody
afternoon.
onto these spaces, don't they?
They will. They will. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night, everybody. No. I wasn't going to let Tony slide on all that, some of that talk there about re-entries and what we need to do. So I'm here to bring the operator perspective, and I'll let you guys, the poker players, kind of decide because here's the deal. You guys dictate the market. It's not the TDs, it's not the operators, it's the players. You guys dictate the market. So if you ask the majority of operators, I bet we would all agree in some sense to say that if we could roll it back to the old days, we'd all go back to it. Players jump in a tournament, they play a freeze out, and boom, they're in our cash games. However, when we opened this box of reentries, and when I say we, I mean Matt Savage, if you're listening somewhere,
He'll listen later.
when you created this monster, what you did was you didn't just change the landscape of how operators run events, where we all run these events that have unlimited reentries and all this stuff, but you actually broke the player base into two distinct categories of cash and tournaments. Because a lot of people, yeah, there are people that cross over, but most of them are purely recreational players, like people that want to take this game to treat it like a sport and learn from it, and maybe even use it as a second source of income, or blessed be their first source of income. They have to put themselves in one of these camps these days. It feels like they have to be in the lab for one or the lab for the other because of how we made these tournaments. You have to learn how to maximize your entries and everything today that we didn't think about 20 years ago, when it was just one entry, that's it, you get one swing at the bat. And I like Tony's analogy about three strikes, but here's what I'm going to say. If you guys want to go back to the days of old, which I would kind of, what do you think, Tony? We started reentries in like 2010-ish.
Yep.
If we want to go back to the days of old, we have to, as players, speaking as a player right now, get used to two things. One, massive guarantees have to go away. They have to. It's impossible to run these events without reentries and say $2 million guarantee. You can't do it. Nobody guaranteed 2 million. Nobody did guarantees back in the day. You didn't have to. Everybody showed up at the tournament at 11 a.m. The tournament kicked off on time, and they didn't run these massive guarantees, which also we'd have to get used to not having tournaments go as deep as they do today. We can't have these deep, mega, super, ultra stacks and all this stuff. We got used to that, and we're able to do that because of re-entries. Because here, guys, it's not a linear relationship when you buy in as a player at the start of a tournament versus at reg close. There's a big difference between servicing you as a customer at 100 big blinds effective versus 16. It's a lot less money and a lot less labor and a lot less resources to run tournaments at 16 big blinds. I'm not saying all tournaments should start at 16 bigs. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is these massive stacks that we've grown used to in the last 15 years would have to go back a little bit. Sherry, I know I'm going to be dating all of us in here when I say this, but we remember WSOP events when you got the amount of chips that you bought in for. You bought it for a 2,500, you got 2,500 in chips. And yeah, the tournaments might have started at 510 or 2,550 and stuff like that. But we would have to normalize and correct this also in while implementing a freeze out or single reentry. So that's it. I'm off my soapbox. I'll let it go back to the pros like Tony.
Well, we
Well,
appreciate that.
to my defense, Sean, she did ask me, if I could wave a wand and go back. And like I said, I think we would all love to go back, like you stated. But how do we get back there? And while we're on it, damn that Matt Savage.
His real name is Towley, but we'll just leave that for another day. And I'm going to say it wasn't that many years ago that the ladies' event was only 10K in chips. That wasn't very many years ago, folks. And I'm glad that it's no longer 10K in chips for sure. $1,000 buy-in and 10K in chips. Come on.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, Sherry, that you brought up is we have gotten, I wouldn't say we, the maybe the new players to the game. We live in a society that we love big portions, especially here in the States, right?
Right.
And we love zeros. We talk about, stacking chips and, we've gotten away from, it doesn't matter about the chips, the starting stack. Look at the structure. And it's tough to get people to look at structure sometimes because we all know sometimes people just don't read. But educating, somebody on a structure, um, it's easier said than done.
I could not agree more. We've had many of talks in these spaces, and some people that I know have played poker for several years, something will come up about a structure and they have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm always kind of surprised. I don't think everybody has to be like your knowledge base, Justin's or Sean's knowledge base about a structure, but there should be some, general knowledge about a structure,
yeah.
especially like that there actually are sheets that you could go look at.
And sadly, a lot of markets get into chip wars. To where it's like, all right, my competitor's doing 40. Well, now I'm going to do 50. Well, I'm going to do 60. And you're
Right,
seeing some of these stacks get up to 100,000. And in all due respect, it's okay to do that on occasion to make something special.
right.
And if you're going to adjust the structures accordingly. But and I'm going to date myself as well. To watch, I've watched dollar chips and 5 unit chips and 25 unit chips be retired in certain sets. They go to the graveyard, and
Right.
I'm saying this, and I hope this doesn't happen anytime soon. I'm almost ready for the 100 chip to go to the graveyard too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're going to start World War III with
Oh,
that.
I love it. I love it. Let's do this.
I'm not advocating for it. Damn it.
You heard it here first, guys. Tony Burns does not want 100 chips in tournaments anymore.
Oh
You
yeah.
heard breaking news. Breaking news.
What's the ETA on the 500 chip?
You're already canceled. You're already canceled.
All right.
They got you, buddy.
Well, there's my SOS to get out of here. Maybe.
Hey, I'll also add this in that one thing that we don't think about, we didn't really think about 20 years ago, but we definitely think about today is when we changed these tournaments to a re-entry format, it changed how the game is played in a what I would call a congested market like Las Vegas versus a regional market. And what I from the operator, I'm speaking back from the operator's perspective. And what I mean by this is, if I run a tournament at Aria at 1 p.m. and I now make that a freeze out, all my competitors just say, okay, come to us, and we lose the guest if we don't have reentries. So that is a problem that we don't know how to solve, because again, we have now put these, most players are in buckets of tournaments versus cash. So if I have a product and you bust out with, you came to Aria, you wanted to play at Aria, and hand number one, you get busted with aces and you can't re-enter, not only are you leaving my building, you might not come back because you just had a bad, what feels like a poker player, a bad experience. Obviously, at the end of the day, we all understand that's variance, that's part of luck and all that other stuff. It could have happened at any casino, but I no longer offer that product because you're not going to hop into a 1-3 cash game, at least not anymore. So again, that would be another issue we have to figure out, where if you're Casino Arizona, you can kind of do whatever you want. Your next closest real competition is Commerce or Las Vegas. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's very different regionally versus, and Tony, you can obviously speak to this because you run the Moneymaker Tour in very condensed markets while also running it in very regional, where you're the next closest competition is 80 to 100 miles plus.
Correct. Yep. No, you're 100% right. And I talked to Matt about this, and I told him this should be his swan song for when he finally retires. If he really wants to correct this, and he talks about introducing reentries or unlimited reentries, why not find a magic number to say, look, any tournament, just if you want to make it broad, just say that you get to only re-enter this many times, and maybe have it as a recommended procedure for TDA. I don't know what the right answer is. And I know getting anybody at TDA, trying to get 180, 200 people in a room. I mean, we went through with Big Blind Annie and spent countless hours on it, on something that happens, 1% of the time in a year. Um, it's really hard to get everybody on the same page because, like you said, different regions have to, they feel like they have to keep it unlimited in order to keep the guest. And if one place won't do it, the other one will. So it's tough, like you
Well,
said.
I would like to see the numbers. Like, what are the numbers? If I have 1,000 players in this tournament that has unlimited buy-ins, what are the numbers? What's the percentages of players rebuying in? What is the percentages of how many times they're rebuying in? I think the key to that equation is looking at those numbers and saying, okay, we have 1,000 players. Out of that 1,000 players, 50 are rebuying in. Out of that 50 player pool, there are 10 that are buying in more than 6 times, or there are 10 buying in more than 10 times. I think the key is to look at those numbers, data mine those numbers, look at those numbers and see what it really looks like by the numbers.
You're right, Sherry, and I did quite a bit of analytics at the time, at my time at Hard Rock, and the amount of people that are buying into a tournament more than 3 or 4 times, it is a very, very small percentage. At least it was there. A lot of the places also deem that information proprietary, and they don't want to give away reentry rates. I've always liked some of the rooms that have broken down, how many people bought in how many times, and I think it's kind of a more of a human interest thing. Um, but you're right. I think we can at some point put an amount of reentries. Like I said, it as maybe as a suggestion. Um,
Right. And
not
are we looking at those okay, so if you have 1,000 players and 3% of those players, even 5% or 10%, I don't think the number is 10%. But anyway, if it's 3 or 5% of the players are rebuying in and rebuying in for more than 5 times, okay, are we really catering to those 5% or 3% versus the 95% that are not?
mm, well, Sean hit on it earlier though too. Sherry, is that it's going to be a domino effect of things. Is the market, the players, willing to accept that guarantees are going to be either reduced or need to go away or be reset at some point in time? Because you do have, certain rooms that want to get into running a tour, or they want to run a major event, but yet they're scared, or reserved. I don't think I want to use the word scared. They're reserved to put a big number out there because they don't want to take a bath, and they don't deserve to take a bath. They're
And
trying to
nobody
help grow.
blames them for that. I mean, nobody blames them
No,
for that. Business is business. But I think we could come up with a magical number, whether it be 6, 8, 10, or even 12 of, allotted big rebuys. Um, I think there can be a number. I
I think
really do.
I think there can be a number two. I mean, there's a number of downs in football. Once again, number of strikes, a number of faults in tennis, whatever you want to call it. Um, and once you've hit that limit, the great thing about poker right now, and we can all contest to it, there's always a tournament tomorrow.
Amen. Amen. I totally agree with that. There's always a poker game going on somewhere in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Hey
there's
Sherry, real
so
quick, couple thoughts.
Yeah.
One, Tony's right. You'll never get that information from the casinos.
And I agree.
What we will do sometimes is, let's say we get 250 players into a tournament. We'll say 180 of them were uniques. Well,
yeah.
that tells you that 70 were reentry. We won't say
Right.
one person re-entered five, one
Right.
person re-entered four. We did that one time with the WPT, and it was a disaster for
Rightfully
both
so.
sides. It was
Yeah.
not good information to be out there. It was a
And when I
disaster.
say that we need to look at that information, I don't necessarily mean the public. I mean, as if we're going to decide to limit the buy-ins, I just look at the industry needs to look at those numbers and say, okay, are we really catering to 3% of the people and players that
The,
rebuy in, or are we catering to the 97%? And we want to have everybody happy, so give that 3% 10 buy rebuys. You know what I mean? Like, I think that could be done internally and look at those numbers.
I mean,
so two things there. One, when you say, like, even if I told you that X percentage, let's just call it 5% of the field rebuys three times or more. The problem is that number isn't static to that 5%. There could be other people within the event who also would have done that, but they didn't need to because they spun their initial stack or one reentry up. So you have a mixed bag in a tournament that could be upwards of 25% of the field feels that re-entering as many times as they need to build a stack is. So getting that true number is really, really tough, especially during
Yeah.
times like WSOP. WSOP drives me, as much as I love that season, summer poker season, it's so great. It drives me nuts because we even see it now. These guys are going out vlogging they're at WSOP at 3:30 and they're busting out and they're at Aria at 4 and then they're busting out in their MGM at 5:30 and they've re-entered in each spot a couple times. And I've talked to some of these guys. They're like, chip stacks don't matter during WSOP. Bring me in 16 big blinds. It's time to spin up. So even the mentality of the pros now is, I just have to pump as much volume as I can in to spin one of the stacks to be worth it, to win a bracelet, win a trophy, win, obviously win the top prize, win cash, be it top three place or something like that. But even the mentality of tournament players, certain times of the year, especially WSOP, is more about volume than it is about value.
And I don't disagree with that. I just think that, even if it was 25% that would rebuy, you could say the 3% that, you could flip that around and say, well, maybe next time they play, they won't be rebuying because they're only on one bullet. And so those numbers are fluid, but I do think if you looked at the numbers, even in a 3-year period of time, you could come up with a number of rebuys that most people would agree with. I personally would think it would need to be more than 3, but I think that those numbers would give you the answers. So that's just my train of thought
no,
anyway.
share 100% with you, and I'm not in the world of being on an operator poker room anymore to see all the numbers, but I'm sure they've grinded it out and they look at, okay, if they did limit the amount of rebuys, all right, there's an adverse effect on the guarantee, right? What
Right.
is that going to do to the bottom line, especially if they are putting in a lot of volume? You could be talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars when you have a rise of, all the cost of everything, right, is going up from wages. So there's an ask from poker to increase the bottom line, but yet you're staring at a problem where you need to actually kind of pull back, and it's tough when you're trying to justify it to shareholders or bean counters.
See, can I interject real quick? And I think there's truth in what you're saying, but also, like, we're going to hit our budgets where we need to. If tournaments go down, we're going to increase offerings somewhere else. We're going to get there most of the time. I think the glaring thing, and I mentioned this earlier, that we're missing is the market dictates this, guys. You can go to the operators and say, "Hey, we'll support your poker room if you keep it to 2 re-entries only." But then if we don't, people still show up. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. Like, do you remember? And everybody like said, "Oh, we're going to boycott such and such room." Well, that such and such room became so rec heavy and so juicy, everybody went back to that room. And it's a great room. I'm not knocking them or anything.
No,
But the
you're right.
market is what's going to dictate this. So if you guys band together and say, "Hey, only support rooms that do 2 reentries max," guess what? The big rooms are going to change really quick because we're not going to let that dollars walk out the door. But trying to put it on us like this is where I disagree with you, Tony, when you say, like, in sports you have rules like travel is a travel no matter what coast you're on. A home run is a home run, and all these things. The problem is in poker versus other quote unquote sports is the money dictates our action. So it's just very different. Like, you don't buy into a baseball game, you don't buy into all these games. So they can have standard rules for everybody to follow, and they're just governed by MLB, NBA, yada yada. But there's no one governing body for casinos because we're a for-profit business that can set our rules based on applicable laws and regulations. So again, this problem to be solved, it has to come from the players working with the operators, not the operators instituting rules that players aren't going to follow them. They're just going to still play where they want to play.
I agree to that to a point too, Sean. But I think you and I both know sometimes you have to uh, put things in and you have to sell it to the players, because let's think about the days when we used to pay out 1 in 10. We had a 10% pay chart. I remember when we went to the 1 in 8 chart, that even paying an additional 2.5%, the players went bananas over it, right? But you had to explain to them why it was better for the overall community, and after time and staying prudent to it, they eventually buy in. So I think sometimes you do have to grab the bull by the horns, stand by what you want to do, and get your players to buy into it. And then in the end, they will see it. And back to your other point, you are right. If you do limit the amount of, let's say, re-entries on a $3,500 buy-in, the chances are that money is going to be spread, especially in an integrated resort. It's going to find its way into another department on that property. We all just know that obviously poker and those other departments have their own separate budgets, and they have to answer for their budgets.
Sure, I wasn't actually talking about cross gaming or cross like F&B or hotel. I was actually still talking within poker that, like, if we went to a system that had, 1 reentry or freeze outs, we would just offer more tournaments. We would figure the hole out eventually. We would find the deficiency and plug the hole with another offering
Yeah.
within poker. I think we could do that. I mean, this is a great conversation, guys. I just, like I said, this is such a really tough conversation to draw parallels to, because the operators are incentivized to get the most rake they can, to get the most volume that they can, especially in certain markets. So even if there's a full-on campaign from the operator side, we're not all going to agree. It's impossible.
No, it is.
We can't band together and agree. So again, the players are going to dictate this. Yes, there are things we have to make decisions on that we consider either protecting the game or protecting the player. I remember when not too long ago, I think they stopped doing straddles in certain games because people were like, the pros were taking advantage of the recreational players. I thought that was a good move, and they caught some resistance on it. It's not like people stopped going to win, though. It's not like people just jumped ship and went to Bellagio and Ari and all these things. No, no, no. That's a rule or an op that we thought, or they thought in this instance, was protecting the game and the longevity of those limits. And I agree with it to some extent. But in this case, when we're talking about direct profits off of off an offering, we have to have something either A, in place, or what I'm saying is the market, being the players, have to just band together and talk this out and say, we're going to support the rooms that only do X. And when when people I always love the term vote with your dollars. It's such a powerful statement. When people do that, the operators have to pivot.
Could not agree more.
Well, as Sean said, I think, Sean and I have been on hour-long phone calls with one another going back and forth because I think of how passionate and how much we love. We're still in our prime days and want to continue to grow this game and love these opportunities to talk to, yourself, Sherry, and the community. And like I said, do what we believe is best because, like I said, the passion is there.
Well, and we appreciate you guys listening and chatting and debating with us so we can learn more ourselves. And I want to give a little shout out to Sean because the ARIA is up for Poker Room GPI Award. So if you haven't voted for your fan favorites for Poker Room, the ARIA Poker Room is up for that GPI Award. And you can go on to their Twitter account, the GPI Twitter account, and follow the links to vote for the ARIA. So just want to give you a little shout out there.
I appreciate that. And if Arya loses in this category, it's going to be my one-time Kanye West moment.
I thought that was for me, Sean.
No. I broke my award in half for you. You still own half of my award.
That's
I
right.
think you should put it in your bio, half industry person of the year for what year was that? 20. It's so long ago. We're so old now.
I know.
You guys are not that old. But I also want to remind everybody that the Moneymaker Tour is going to kick off at the Palms Beach Kennel Club down in Florida, February 12th through the 25th. And as much as I'm loving this conversation, I know you are overboard in your time, Tony, and I appreciate you doing so.
Yes, I'm going to go max late reg a tournament, and they're going to put a $300 bounty on me. So I think I'm going to get in with 10 big blinds, which I think is maybe not enough for some, but that's enough for me.
Well, we appreciate your time and we'll do it again as summer approaches and we'll see what you're up to and what the tour's doing at the time. And as always, I always enjoy our conversations. Tony, I appreciate you stopping by.
I appreciate you and Sean. Big shout out to Sean and all of his support for the Moneymaker Tour and Steve PK at MGM Grand and hopefully be back this summer to have some more fun there.
Love it. Steve's doing a great job at the MGM. I might add that as well. Great staff for sure. Um,
All right, everyone.
and
Well, appreciate you again, and everybody have a great rest of your night, and look forward to catching up this summer.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you. And anybody that wants to stick around, I'll keep the space open for a little bit longer if you want to chat. Um, I have no problem with that, Tony. You could just hit that button in the top right corner and be on your way, bud.
Well, I might put my earbuds in and
Perfect.
continue to hear what you all have to say. Actually, you know what? That would be going against. I better interact with the players. So.
Yeah, you'll be called out since we just talked about that a minute
I
ago.
know. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you.
Peace, man.
Bye.
Isaac, tell us what you guys got going on tonight.
Oh, chilling. Just gonna start the space in about 18 minutes. Hang out, run a 10-chip game for a phase 3 pass, and I don't know, maybe do the other fee roll vibe thing right after. Lately, everybody's been jumping on that, so we've been playing it more often. It's pretty fun.
I love it. You guys are doing great things. You guys are working hard. Good for you guys.
Thank you very much,
You
Sherry. I
bet.
appreciate that.
That's the Green Visor Gang. They'll be having their spaces here in about 15 minutes, and I'm definitely going to end my space before that and clear the airways for them and what they're doing. Um, I definitely will give you that courtesy as you do for me. Appreciate you guys.
You already know. You already know.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, hearing all of that earlier about rebuys and everything, you know, I don't know if this is a wicked thought or something, but like, why not switch up the way rebuys are awarded, right? I mean, you get so many time cards in a game. Maybe you only get like one rebuy card. You can only rebuy once or something.
Right. And that, what is the magical number is the conversation. Like, do we want it to be one? Do we want it to be none? Do we want it to be 6 or 10? I
I
mean,
guess the
that's
question is how to change things and keep them profitable,
right. And when
right?
you change it from you're losing prize pool. You're losing prize pool. So there has to be a happy medium there.
Indeed, indeed. It's one to think about. Definitely one to think about. But it isn't an easy solve, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think, for me, the Cody down in Biloxi with the 35 rebuys, and he's just doing each rebuy as a flip, all in blind. You know, I, yeah, I would have been upset if I was at that table. Honestly, I would be, it's
Uh
ruining
huh.
my experience.
That is true. That is true. Well, I've played it, especially like playing online. I feel like a lot of rooms are like that online, where everybody's just doing huge flips, and
Right,
that is definitely the culture of it.
right.
That's how I've seen it play out a lot online. That's why a lot of people get frustrated playing, on platforms like GG and whatnot. You know, but hey,
Nope.
in time it'll all solve itself. I think.
And I think that's true too, and it's like Sean says, let your dollars do the talking. So if you don't like what's happening, go do it, right?
Yep, definitely.
And some people have more dollars than sense,
Yes, indeed.
right? Donna, what are you doing tonight, girl? You trying to sleep on me here?
I'm going to sleep. It's 1:45. I'm back. I'm finally back on UK time.
Oh, good. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to hear that. You,
So I've been sort of like dozing.
I get it. I do that often in the spaces. The other night, who is in there? John and Ryan Koss were. I put them as co-hosts, and I sent John a message, and I said, "I got." It was the day I drove home from Cherokee. And I said, "I got to go to sleep. I got to take a nap. Y'all take over. It's the only place the host can go to sleep, and and it keeps going. The only podcast in the world that the host can go to sleep and it keeps on going. But anyway, I was tired.
Well,
Tired.
it was lovely to hear from Sean as well.
Yes. And I appreciate his input always. Um,
Exactly.
I love the food for thought. Love the food for thought. It's good for all of us. All right, you guys, I'm going to log off. Appreciate everybody that joined us. Um, Donna, appreciate you. Get some sleep, lovely.
Appreciate you too, darling.
All right. Good night, everybody. Isaac, thank you. Todd, I see Justin's down there and Doinky and Karen. Appreciate y'all. Merv and Anthony and ASG and Bathwater. I see you down there. Appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend. If you're playing on the felt, I wish you luck. If not, um, go touch the grass. Enjoy some outside weather, even if it's cold out. I see you, Barry and Larry and Deep Poo Man. Appreciate all of you. Good night, everybody.